Okay, thanks for your patience, everyone. I think I'll just kick off with the introductions. My name's Ken Wilcox. I'm Head of Cloud and Managed Services for Bridgeall. I've been at the organisation for approximately 9 years now, focused on migrating and managing workloads to Microsoft Cloud. We're going to focus today on Azure cost management. For anyone who doesn't know, Bridgeall were established in 2002. We currently have around 35 staff. That's our very nice offices there in George Square, which unfortunately have been pretty empty, as most organisations have been for the last 15 months or so. But I think we're very slowly transitioning our way back into making use of them again. So any of you will be more than welcome to come once things open up fully for us. So Bridgeall are a Microsoft Gold partner. We focus on sort of 3 key areas. We look at modern intelligent workplace, which my colleague Graham McLean heads up. Another area is managed IT services and support, which is the area that I'm head of business for. We also have a bespoke .NET development team, and that has generated a number of products, namely Smart Crowds and Trevi. We've got quite a number of customers spread across many different verticals, and we work in both public and private sector. There's a number of logos in there. The sort of commonality of all our clients is that they all work with Microsoft Cloud Services and have done for many years, and we've either developed applications for them or host their own applications or servers on Azure services. So jumping into Azure cost management, our agenda for the day, we're going to briefly look at an introduction, a quick overview. I'm going to look into FinOps, which is defined as cloud financial management. We're going to look into some of the principles of cloud FinOps, and then I'm going to dig a bit deeper into ways. I think there's about 8 or 9 ways I've got covered here today that we can look to save on spend in Azure. So running a growing and evolving set of public cloud services, it can easily get out of hand, both from a management and a financial point of view. Early on, companies have embraced the cloud primarily as a way to save money, but those who have been in the industry long enough will remember the problem of server sprawl that we've had in our data centers. We're now starting to experience cloud sprawl, and this is becoming a real challenge for companies, mainly down to spiraling costs. Because the cloud's scalable and elastic, this has given us the ability to scale resources up, but there's a real risk of us underutilizing or wasting resources. And quite often we forget about resources that have been set or the configurations that have been set. So we need to negate this and try and make as many cost savings as we possibly can. 59% of IT professionals are now citing that IT spend on cloud service, cloud costs overruns. This is one of their top issues. So looking at cloud FinOps, this is shorthand for cloud financial management. It's basically the practice of bringing financial accountability to the variable spend model of the cloud. It enables distributed teams to make business trade-offs between speed, cost, and quality. It's everything involved with tracking and analysing and optimizing the costs incurred with cloud usage. And that allows distributed teams to make the business trade-offs between speed, cost, and quality. It needs to become embedded into the culture when managing cloud services. and it should give them the most efficient way for the teams to manage the cloud costs. A centralized team is best positioned to support the teams, and this centralized team should be looking on key areas of technology, business, and finance. The main principles of FinOps are broken down into visibility, measurement, and then flexibility. Visibility is the sort of key area, the very first principle that we start with, and we should look to analyze what our current consumption is and gain an overall understanding of the resources that we've got deployed and their associated costs. What Bridgeall find on many occasions of reviews that we've done in the past is that the entities and the objects that are stored in the cloud, they are not named properly. They're not linked in any way. There's no way of directly associating what those entities are to actual servers or applications or objects that are relevant to the business. So therefore, pulling out costs from those objects is almost impossible. There is in larger organizations, the key is really all around governance, and we can look at, depending on the size of your organization, you can look at setting up quite a robust structure to manage your cloud entities on an ongoing basis, and therefore simplify the whole process of cloud financial operation. At the bottom level, we deal with Azure either an account level or an enterprise agreement. Above that, we then end up we have subscriptions, and then within the subscriptions we manage our resource groups. And by proper naming and subdivision of the entities that are positioned in there, all of these things can move towards simplifying our task of cost management and monitoring that we need to do. Beyond all of the various cloud services there, you have the ability to tag objects, and tagging is key really to what we need to do to pull out the information and the data. So one of the key areas that Bridgeall would do would be to work with you on a basis to define and structure your cloud services in a manageable manner that can easily be divided from a cost perspective. In many cases, the provision of naming standards for resource groups and cloud service entities, whether it be virtual machines, networks, all of these kind of things are key to being able to identify and easily manage the costs. The second pillar for the cloud financial management is around measurement, and having accurate measurement on the usage of what the entities or what the cloud services are doing is also key, and making sure that everything is right sized and we're not underutilizing or overutilizing what has been produced. And then the final one is flexibility. The cloud gives us the ability to easily scale and scale up or scale down on any of the entities. The graphic there shows an Azure SQL database with all of the different SKUs that are available on that cloud service. Virtual machines are the same. So very, very easily we can change the consumption or the performance that these objects, these entities have, and therefore we shouldn't be using traditional techniques for capacity management, whereby we would always size for the maximum anticipated workload on a server, so that we would never ever get to that area. It might be 2 years down the line or 3 years down the line, but it would be sized on the basis of what we predict our maximum would be. we almost do the opposite with cloud services, because we have the ability whereby things, entities or objects can be scaled up as demand grows. So let's move on to some ways for reduction of your Azure cloud costs. So key here is right sizing. The first one to look at, on-premise resources were oversized to allow for growth in the cloud. And as I've just mentioned, this isn't good practice when dealing with cloud services. On many occasions, when organizations or companies have migrated their workloads, they've simply lifted and shifted what was on-prem and moved it to the cloud, and everything's working fine, and they walk away and everything's great. However, the costs that are spiraling on a particular server, it could be double or treble what it actually needs to be. So, a clear measurement of what the workload on the server is really important. And if we get it wrong, if we under-egg the configuration, it can easily be changed and altered simply by a window or a script to and a reboot, for instance, on a virtual machine to actually get you to the next size up. There's a vast array of virtual machines available of all different sizes and reference numbers, and there's some examples what I've given there of sort of general purpose machines. The D series, we want to look at F series, which have got compute optimized, so you've got more cores to memory ratio. E series, you've got the opposite, more memory to CPU ratio. Then we get into some sort of specialist type VMs, LSV2s, which are ideal for SQL or big data, graphics intensive machines or high performance compute. One of the real nice or excellent VM sizes are the B series, which provide a burstable performance, so that for many types of workloads like web servers or AD, Direct Active Directory, these kind of workloads that don't continuously use the CPU, you can save significant amounts of money. And at the bottom there, you can see a B series 4-core with 16 gig of RAM is almost half the price of what the the equivalent D series is 4-core with 16 gig of RAM. So by looking at different options there, if for instance your workload, as I say, isn't needing continuous usage of the CPU, you can save a lot of money by opting into the B series VMs. Another area is looking at upgrading from older Azure products, and one of the things that we can look at is what they call the family refresh. Quite often, on the D series VMs there, what I've indicated is that the version 2, version 3, version 4, they are all readily available. The version 2 might have been installed about 3 years ago or 4 years ago or something like that. And if you're continuing to run that workload at that price, you could get a much more modern CPU on the latest family, and it's significantly cheaper than what the version 2 server is. So there's a real motivation to assessing and looking at your VMs on a regular basis, seeing what comes available, and maybe just swapping the type to the latest that could save you money. There are savings all the time, as you can see down there, the E and the F, although they are a lot more modest. One of the other things to look at as well is that you might have classic VMs, anything that's been maybe put in the workloads around 2014, possibly 2015 time, would have used the classic VM type. I'm certainly old enough to have worked with many of them, and we've had to do the upgrades. But there's a key point of end of life of March 2023 for them. And they're also, one of the big things is they're not compatible with the Azure Resource Manager, so management of them is not as simple as it is on the modern type. So because of the flexibility of the clouds, another way to save money is shut items down, shut entities down when they're not in use. Azure is a metered, you pay for what you use services. So, to optimize these costs, make sure that the items are deallocated or deleted when they're not being used. For Azure Compute Services, they're charged by the second, and this is actually rounded down to the nearest minute. So they compile all of the families of CPUs and memories and group them into a single cost for you. Just to give an example there of a 4-core 16 gig of RAM machine, to run that 24/7 across a full year would cost around £2,650. Now, if you measured a workload that was only really required 10 hours a day for Monday to Friday, you could, by shutting the machine down, you could save a significant amount, around 70% in charges over that 12-month period. When you deploy a VM now, there is the ability to actually put in an auto shutdown time, so the system could actually turn off and deallocate the machine at a point in time, or that could be added in at any point, any time you like. So this is where we kind of get into the practice of working with your teams to build into the culture of them, so that these are the kind of working processes that they do. And for test or training or development environments that are probably not needed outside business hours, lots of costs could be saved over that period. Turning the machines back on at a specific time is a little bit more complex. It's that they haven't made this as simple as the tick box. However, it can easily be done through the creation of a script, or we can use run books and things like that to bring a machine on at a specific time, so that it's not a manual process, it becomes automated. One key note is that when you stop a virtual machine, you're actually still getting billed for compute on that. So the key is it needs to be deallocated. If deallocation doesn't delete it, the disks and storage are still there, which you're still actually paying for. It just means that it's not incurring any compute charges at that time. One of the biggest problems that we encounter when reviewing Azure environments for other customers is that there tends to be lots of debris, if you like, left around. Unused Azure cloud services, they can incur significant costs, and they really need to be deleted. Many organizations might have redundant servers that were set up for testing or something like that, or legacy apps that are no longer in use. One of the key things when you delete a virtual machine, it normally leaves behind a whole lot of debris as well. So you need to look and maybe delete the VM disks manually as a secondary process. If anyone's taken any snapshots of any disks, then they tend to be left around as well, and you pay in storage costs for those. IP addresses, you might have an extensive set of backups and archives that really are just not needed anymore. It far outweighs your DR and your backup policy, and these, they're just incurring costs for storage. Very, very simple for development teams when they're working to create multiple databases that could be incurring costs just because the database is not full. If you've got a P1 database and a SQL Azure PaaS service, it could be incurring £400+ per month. And if somebody's made a secondary copy of that for a quick test or something, then that these things can create significant costs. The network gateways as well. So times you might have had VPN tunnels to on-premise networks or to data centers set up, and if they're no longer required, they, even if they're idle, they still incur cost. And just that bottom bullet point there. So if you're taking a snapshot of a managed disk that is using premium storage, the disk storage could easily be converted across to standard storage away from premium, so that the snapshot sits there as at a lower cost rate than you would incur, and it can easily be converted back again if it was ever needed to be used. The bottom point, a proper governance strategy should help define how to identify and eliminate waste. So continually monitoring through the sort of FinOps process and checking and seeing what's there. We use tools in Bridgeall to clearly identify this, so it's not an arduous task for us. We've got dashboards that can show us when stuff's idle and not being in use, or it's redundant. So reserved instances, if you know what your workload's going to be, if it's going to be active for at least a year, you have the ability to save costs by purchasing a reserved virtual machine instance. Reserved instances, they're also available for Azure SQL databases as well as storage as well, although I've not managed to find anyone who holds enough storage to purchase one yet. It needs to be quite an investment. But for production servers, VMs, it provides a reliable and predictable resource. You can purchase them in 1 or 3 year reservations. Although you are paying for the reservation, you do still have a degree of flexibility, and you can normally change the reservation if required, or even cancel it on some circumstances. There is a penalty sometimes for cancellation, but normally you have had to have done quite a number of cancellations before they would incur the penalty. And the penalty is normally, I think it's around 14%. The reservations can be either allocated to a dedicated virtual machine or dedicated subscription, or you can share the compute throughout the account, so that workloads of a similar type can all tap in and take a piece. The dedicated features has been really quite useful over the last 12 months, where resources have been scarce on some occasions in Microsoft data centers. And if you've got a dedicated if you've got a dedicated reserved instance, it's key to allowing that resource to always be online for you. So looking at an example for a 4 CPU 16 gig machine, pay-as-you-go cost would be around $2,650, and you can save 41% on a 1 year reserved instance, and you could save up to 62% on the 3 year reserved instance. When reserved instance was first introduced, you had to purchase them up front. However, that's been changed a few years ago, so you're now actually able to pay them on a monthly basis. In combination with reserved instances, organizations who have an enterprise agreement can take advantage of Azure Hybrid benefits. The licensing can be a significant cost on the ongoing cloud services. Every VM or every Windows VM, you would need a license for it. So if you have software assurance on your enterprise agreement, you are allowed to use those licenses and therefore not pay an additional license fee. And for an example there, on the D8 V4, which is an 8 CPU 32 gig machine, the licensing alone for that would be £2,400 a year. So if you've got a license on a hybrid benefit, you're quite a significant saving. It actually also applies now to Red Hat and SUSE Linux. If you've got subscriptions for them, then you can use a hybrid benefit there too. So partners in the CSP program, we're able to sell software subscriptions, and through this program you can take advantage of the Azure Hybrid benefit. So once again, they're available on a 1 to 3 year term, and it's payable in advance as you would do for an enterprise agreement. So to give you some examples on the savings available there, we, for a 1 year instance on that same 8 CPU 32 gig of RAM, £2,400 per year for the pay as you go, whereas the cost would be £278. So that's a massive, over £2,100 of savings if you take that route. On the 3 year, you can increase those savings to around £6,650. These are big savings, and we did an exercise with one of our clients, and they had a large remote desktop services farm, and this was before Windows Virtual Desktop became available, because we're migrating them to that now. But across 15 VMs, we managed to save them £62,000 on Windows Server licenses in that single year. The next one is to look at Azure Spot virtual machines. Spot virtual machines, they are basically using unused Azure compute, and there are large discounts in the region of up to 90% when you compare them with pay-as-you-go costs. They're only recommended for non-critical workloads. However, anything that can handle an interruption, so you could use them for parts of proof of concepts or development of test environments, possibly batch jobs and renderings. And Microsoft suggests that they're also suitable for machine learning and AI. Some drawbacks of them are obviously there's no SLA on Spot virtual machines. They can be evicted based on either your capacity that's been reached or unavailable anymore, or you've set a maximum price and you've gone beyond that price. And then when they're stopped, they can either be deallocated, therefore they can be restarted again at a later date, or they can just be deleted. So just covering off the last area, the other ones are really the other savings opportunities focus on simple changes, mainly around infrastructure as a service and quick wins that you can do. But looking into more of the long term and leveraging cloud services, elasticity, scalability, all of these kind of features. If you move to platform as a service on many of your applications, you've got some advantages around the ongoing costs for management as well. So you're removing a large support element from your back end teams that need to keep the infrastructure as a service running, because that all gets handed over to Microsoft. You don't have to pay for the licensing as well, and as we've indicated, licensing can be quite a costly component of the cloud services billing. One of the primary PaaS services is to move Azure SQL or to move a SQL VM across to Azure SQL, and this can save quite significant costs and a lot of SQL admin roles as well. It's all built in with your PaaS service, so maybe a lot of the unseen costs are also added into this. When designing applications, our internal dev teams focus primarily on platform as a service, and we start to leverage things like Azure Functions nowadays to run batch jobs rather than firing up VMs, and these kind of elastic and on-demand services that are available significantly reduce the costs of running an application. And any questions? That's the presentation and the slides. Hopefully you found some of that informative. So there's a question there from John Walker. Sorry, question from Jonathan Trussell. How can SMEs take advantage of this? So the key area for SMEs is to start with the visibility. Start to look at the structure. Start to measure what cloud services you've got. Measure the usage, and analyze. Make sure items are tagged, and you can clearly allocate what entities are in use and right sizing. It can be quite an arduous task in all reality. If many times Azure cloud configurations extend into hundreds or thousands of entities, so there can be a lot to cover. So having tools available to do that is really helpful. Bridgeall would provide services to do a review of someone's cloud services using the tools that we have, and can produce a report. If that's something anybody would be interested in, then certainly please contact us on that, and we can help guide you through to get the environment to a manageable state. So there's a question there: what tools can be used in Azure to measure the costs on a monthly basis? It depends on your mechanism for billing. If you're on pay as you go, then Azure has the Azure Cost Manager that has been developed over the last number of years. It allows you to look quite closely at what is being used, and also predicted expenditure over a monthly period. The Azure Advisor can help look at entities in the system that will identify stuff that is redundant, or disks that have been orphaned from deleted VMs. If you purchase your services from, or your Azure cloud services through the CSP program, it can be a little bit more complicated. So normally your partner would need to help and assist you with that, and they typically have cloud tools themselves that can integrate with them. Okay, guys. Well, I think is there a priority list of where to start? Which process tends to have the best return on investment? The best place to start is to actually plan your cloud services before you end up in cloud sprawl. That really is the best place to start. If you're in the scenario now whereby you have an environment already established, you seem to be having costs that are significantly higher than what was ever anticipated, then yeah, look at configuration around the visibility, the tagging of information, analysis again of right sizing, and look for orphaned items, because these are all the sort of primary areas that get left behind and allow your costs to run away.
let's just wrap up there, I think.
Okay, thanks guys.
Thanks everyone.
Bye bye now.